Driving in the UK feels more expensive every year. Fuel costs keep rising. Insurance is through the roof and repairs break the bank. Even keeping a car on the road now feels like a constant financial drain. For many drivers, this no longer feels like a temporary spike. It feels permanent. People often talk about driving costs as if there must be a single cause: petrol prices, greedy companies, or bad luck. But those explanations only describe the surface of the problem. What has really changed is the system around driving. And once you understand how that system works, it becomes clear why costs keep rising and why they are unlikely to return to where they once were. When people think about the cost of driving, fuel is usually the first thing mentioned. Petrol and diesel prices are visible everywhere you go, and they change regularly and are displayed on large signs that drivers see every day. That visibility makes fuel feel like the main problem. When prices rise, frustration builds quickly. When prices fall, there is relief, but it rarely lasts. Others point to government policy, fuel duty, road tax, environmental rules, or they blame insurers and garages for simply charging more because they can. These explanations are not entirely wrong, but they do not explain why driving keeps getting more expensive, even during periods when fuel prices come to a standstill. That tells us fuel alone cannot be the real driver of the problem. Fuel prices are only one part of the picture. In the UK, fuel duty has been frozen for long periods rather than increased. What has changed instead is the global cost of producing, refining, transporting, and distributing fuel. These costs are influenced by global energy markets, supply chains, and international events that the UK has limited control over. But here is the key point. Even if fuel prices were to fall significantly tomorrow, most drivers would not experience money back into their pockets. That is because fuel is no longer the biggest cost of owning a car. Over time, the financial drain of driving has quietly shifted away from fuel and towards other areas, especially insurance. Car insurance has become one of the largest and fastest growing expenses for UK drivers. This is not because insurers are increasing prices at random. It is because the cost of claims has risen sharply. Modern cars are far more complex than older vehicles. They contain cameras, sensors, radar systems, advanced electronics, and software. Even a low-speed crash can trigger damage that is expensive to diagnose and repair. A bumper is no longer just plastic. It may contain sensors that require calibration. Parts may need to be sourced directly from manufacturers. Labor time increases. Hire cars become more expensive. Each individual claim costs more than it used to, and insurers do not absorb those costs. They pass them on. That is why even drivers with clean records and years of experience are seeing premiums rise even when they are not at fault. The risk profile of driving itself has changed. Maintenance and repairs have followed a similar pattern. Independent garages face higher equipment costs, rising labor expenses, and increasing compliance requirements. Parts are more expensive and less interchangeable than in the past. Even routine maintenance can now involve software resets, electronic calibration, or specialist components. This does not mean cars are poorly designed. It means they are designed for performance, safety, and efficiency, not for cheap repairs. Another layer of cost comes from road infrastructure, which drivers rarely connect directly to their own expenses. Maintaining roads is expensive. Materials cost more. Labor costs more. Projects take longer. Local councils operate under tight financial constraints. Budgets are limited, and priorities compete. The road system is not designed to minimize costs for drivers. It is designed to operate within financial and logistical limits. Another factor that often goes unnoticed is how regulation has changed. Many rules introduced over time are designed to improve safety, reduce emissions, or modernize transport. Individually, these changes often make sense, but collectively, they increase problems. Compliance costs rise. Testing becomes more detailed. Repairs become more specialized. These costs do not stay within government departments or manufacturers. They flow outward, eventually reaching the driver. The most frustrating part of all this is that once driving costs rise, they rarely fall back again. That is because these are not short-term price spikes. They are structural changes. Cars are more complex than they were before. Insurance claims are more expensive. Labor costs do not reverse. Infrastructure becomes harder and more costly to maintain over time. Even when one cost temporarily falls, another continues to rise. The overall system does not become cheaper to run. So driving hasn't suddenly become expensive. What has happened is that the system around driving has changed quietly and in ways most people never see directly. Cars are more complex than they used to be. Insurance claims cost more to resolve. Roads are harder and more expensive to maintain. And labor costs rarely move backwards. None of these things feel dramatic on their own. But together, they push the cost of driving in one direction up. That's why even when fuel prices dip, or a bill stays the same for a while, the overall pressure never really disappears. Driving hasn't become a luxury, but it has become less forgiving. And understanding that doesn't make the costs go away, it just explains why this feels permanent, rather than temporary.